Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can do so by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. If you enjoy true crime stories, make sure to check out our new podcast, Karma Crime, which is also available on every major podcasting platform. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Wake Me Up 3000. Sure, I'll take that survey again and again. One of my banks merged and then closed the branch that was in my town. The closest branch was a 30-minute drive, so I did all my banking online. At some point, I had to do something and online wasn't working out, so I drove to the closest branch. I stood in line, got to the counter, and was told, "You could have done this online." I got pissed about this comment, probably more than I should have, but okay, let's play. You know, I tried for about 15 minutes and kept getting an error, so I waited until this morning, tried again, got the same error, and decided to drive half an hour for help. You could have called the toll-free number for assistance, or I could have come here for help. Yes, but calling might have solved the issue. Okay, let's do this instead. Let's close the accounts and that'll solve the issue. At this point, the manager steps in and tries to smooth things over. Nope, you know there's no reason for me to have to spend an hour of my time driving to and from a bank. I could move this money to A, B, C, or D, which are all 6 minutes from my house. Manager closes out the accounts, gives me a check, and out I go. Drive back to my hometown and throw the money in another bank. Then I get an email asking me to take a survey, so I did and noted all the above. The next day, I signed into my online account and it generated another survey request. I clicked in and took the survey again and copied and pasted the replies to a Google Doc. That way, when I checked my account online every single day, and a new survey request was made every single day, I could take it in a minute. So far, I've done it daily for over a month. They keep asking for my opinion, so who am I not to oblige? Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called HealthNo5265. It says, "I always loved calling my internet provider to complain when my service was out, only to have the recording point out that I could get a faster response if I did it online, even after I pressed the internet down button. Effing morons. If I could have done it online, then my internet wouldn't have been down and I wouldn't have a problem to call about." I love how the bank teller in this case told OP that they could just call the toll-free number and get it done there. Yeah, I'd love to call that number, sit on hold, listening to your awful music for a couple hours, instead of driving down and talking to a real person who can actually get the stuff done right in front of me. Oh my gosh, those call-ins, waiting with that music that's just absolutely horrible, and then the music gets interrupted and you think a person's about to come on and it tries to sell you something. Sign up online for Investor's Edge. Fuck off. This story comes to us from Tino Rex, Landscaper Survey. Just read the other top post about taking a bank survey repeatedly, and it reminded me of my survey story. About 3 years ago, my wife and I bought our house. We realized at the time that most of the house maintenance was poorly maintained. Renters used to live in the house before us. One of the larger projects that needed to be done was a full driveway replacement, as the original driveway hadn't been refinished or maintained in almost 30 years. Knowing that we would need to replace the driveway, my wife and I started planning ahead for the eventual project. We decided at the time that we would also like to expand our driveway. We are one of only 3 houses in my neighborhood to not have a 3-car garage. So we decided that we would expand our driveway out so we could at least have a 3rd stall, even if it was outside of our garage. In order to expand the driveway, we had to get 3 bids out. Bid 1 was for the driveway people themselves, 1 was to our underground sprinkler maintenance, as the expansion would move our existing lines, and finally, due to our land not being 100% flat, the final bid was to a landscaper to build a retaining wall in order to create a flat enough spot to expand our driveway. Due to the various companies working on this project, it meant that we had to make sure all 3 companies could work within the same timelines. The sprinklers were simple enough and not really an issue. The driveway people were great and gave us over a month of wiggle room to make everything work. The problem came from the landscaping company. We made them intimately aware of our timelines and explained the scope of the work, and they assured us multiple times that the deadlines would work. We had the landscapers scheduled for the first week after the driveway was ripped up. However, the landscapers never showed up. We called and rescheduled for the next week, and again, the landscapers didn't show up. This happened twice more before it was literally the day before the driveway people were due back to finish the driveway, and the landscaping was still not done. The landscapers finally showed up, and I talked to them before I left for work that day, gave them my cell phone and some Gatorades before I left, and told them if there were any issues to please call me immediately. Got home from work to find 0 progress done on the project. Turns out the second I had left, the landscapers packed up and went to another job. I actually called the owner and bitched out his team. I have never been so mad about something. The project manager called me back and assured me that they wanted the driveway done first and the landscaping would follow, and that he personally would fix anything that was messed up as a result. Fine. The driveway was poured, and the results were to be expected. Pretty brutal. About a week later, the landscapers finally built their wall, and then added some finishing crap to the driveway. It looked terrible, especially for a brand new driveway. They then sent me my bill for the completed job. I immediately wrote back with pictures and explained that I was not paying for this job until it didn't look like crap, and that I expected the landscapers to fix the mess they made. Well, I got ignored. At this point, they had started ignoring most of my communications until that is about 3 months passed and the landscaper realized I was serious about not paying for their shoddy work. They reached out to me to figure out what was going on, which is when they finally looked at my email about the terrible work and my refusal to pay. By this point in time, it was Christmas and everything around me was frozen. The landscaper lamented not having a chance to fix their shoddy work before months had passed, and I lamented them ignoring my communications about the project being subpar in the first place. We discussed some ways to fix their F-up and settled on one that would at least make things look nicer, but would reduce my driveway width by about a foot. A solution I didn't like, but would at least mostly fix my issues. I left for work one day and came home to my driveway quote-unquote fixed. No note, no communications. They just came in and did it one day when they had time. Again, not exactly how I would have wanted it, but it was okay. My wife and I went back and forth before ultimately deciding to just pay everything, swear off the landscaper forever, and move on. The whole project had taken over 6 months, and we were just done with it all. We paid the bill and moved on. About 5 months later, just before spring and summer was set to start, the landscaper started spamming my inbox with requests for reviews. This is right when most project biddings go out, so they were looking to boost their online visibility and to get projects for the next year. I ignored the first 10 or so emails that came through before deciding maybe I can actually write them a review. And I did. I wrote the exact experience I had with them, highlighted the lack of communication, the unprofessionalism, the frequent missed deadlines, and I even included pictures. Within a week, I received a Google award because my review had over 1,000 views. The owner actually called me after another week and asked what he could do to make things right, which I told him that we were almost a year from the original project. Without a time machine, there wasn't much we could do. All in all, the project was kind of a failure. We expanded the driveway, but now it is a very tight squeeze, and so people rarely use the third slot. I now mostly just get mad when I see the retaining wall. I did get a ton of Google rewards for my review, and I hope it saved a ton of people the headache I went through with the landscaper. I was content with letting them screw me over and just moving on with a lesson learned, but they were persistent with their email campaign. Maybe don't ask people you screwed over to write you a review. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called PN Gwyn. It says, "You did a lot of homeowners in your area a solid service by writing the review. Bonus points for the pictures." Another commenter down below called Xavira said, Why not hire a different landscaper when the first one failed to show up? OP responded to this one and said, bidding is a lengthy process. From start of bid until project completion, you're looking at 30 to 60 days minimum. By the time the original landscaper failed to show up, I had less than 30 days to complete the project, hence the rescheduling. We also had put money down as a deposit for the project, so once we had committed to the original landscaper, we were functionally stuck. The bigger deal is that the landscaper frequently oversold their team, and because our project was only a few grand, the 5 and 6 figure projects they got were consistently prioritized over our existing bid. My takeaway from all this is that I should have hired someone who could do both the driveway and the landscaping and had them handle the entire project. However, anyone with capabilities to do both weren't interested in our relatively small project. The interesting part of this one to me is that OP compromised with the landscaper and lost part of their driveway in the process. I mean, the whole point of this was to expand the driveway so they could use it, but then they took off another foot and they didn't use it. So I would say the problem wasn't solved at all. This story comes to us from Really Effin' Tired. You want me to wait until the last minute to book my hotel? Deal. I work remotely for a small company, around 100 employees, and based on my contract, I have to return to the office for a week 4 times a year. The last time I went back up was in November. In the contract, it's laid out that my employer pays 100% of hotel and gas and airfare. Normally, this is an extremely uneventful routine. It's a mid-sized Midwestern city with not much to do. It is what it is. A few months before I went back up, we had our financial audit, and one thing that was pointed out to our accounting department was a lack of controls on purchasing. The way it used to be was every manager and supervisor had a company credit card with a $1,500 balance, and as long as we stayed under that limit, we didn't have to do any kind of purchase orders. After our audit, my accounting team decided to make purchase orders 100% of their focus. Going forward, it doesn't matter what it was, what the situation was, if you didn't have an approved purchase order, you could not make the transaction. All this happened in early October as I was trying to book my hotel for my on-site week in November. Normally, I have freedom in choosing when I go on-site, but I was requested to go that specific week by my CEO and CFO, as we were launching some strategic planning and they wanted me on-site. So I put the purchase order in for the hotel and I don't hear anything back. I forget about it for a couple weeks, then remember mid-October that I still don't have a hotel room booked. When I initially made the request, it was about $550 for 4 nights. Looking again in mid-October, it was now up to $700 for 4 nights. I looked around and noticed that same week I'm supposed to go up, there's a concert in the same city, followed by a big college sporting event in that town. I sent an email to my accounting folks that I need to book a hotel, rates are going up, room availability is going down, yada yada yada. I get a tersely worded email back saying that everyone has different priorities and my purchase order will be addressed once all the ones before it are done. So I sit back and wait and keep checking every other day and keep seeing prices go up. I send a weekly email asking if it's approved yet and keep getting absolute silence back. Finally, a week before, I email my accounting team with the CFO included saying if I don't book a room that day, there wouldn't be any left, and I wouldn't be able to make it up for the strategic planning work. About 30 minutes later, I get back an email that says, word for word, you are authorized to reserve a hotel room for 4 nights. Cool, I book it. That $550 room is now $1,200. I book it and move on with my life and don't think anything of it. Last week, I got around to uploading my credit card receipts and submitted my expense report, which included that $1,200 hotel stay. I got a call from my CFO today just exploding on me, furious about where the hell did I stay that cost that much, and what was I thinking? I, very calm, just forwarded the original purchase order and all the emails I sent saying that the prices were raising. I had dead silence on the phone as he read through the email chains and just said, for F's sake, then hung up. At the end of the day, all supervisors got an email that the purchase order system was being shut down until they could figure out how to manage it better. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called RivaTNT2M64. It says, I will admit to being mildly surprised at the ending. Typically, especially in larger organizations, this kind of thing is the only flex the numbers guy can push onto the other employees and will be lost in the far larger amounts moving about. What is a significant amount to an individual is less than a rounding error on corporate books and will get missed and help preserve the numbers guy's ego. Seems like your company is small enough for it to be noticed, and the CFO knew you well to call you directly and get details unvarnished. And he was fast acting enough to get the whole thing shut down when it obviously isn't working the way it's supposed to. Both are unlikely to happen in larger companies. Nice work on the cover your butt email, and the snarky reply is probably worth its weight in gold. OP responded to this one and said, yeah, our accounting team definitely lets any small amount of power get to them pretty quick. I will not lie, sending that whole email chain and hearing the F's sake is gonna keep me going for a few days. Cover your butt, cover your butt, cover your butt. We say this all the time here because it's completely true. So OP was able to take that email chain where they had exactly what was going on, send it into the CFO, and the issue was resolved. See people, I keep on telling you this, cover your butt, get that documentation, because it can get your butt out of that hot water and possibly push somebody else in very quickly. This story comes to us from Ryeko. I made freight late because you couldn't compromise. So a few years ago, I got back into truck driving after my daughter was around 2 to 3 years old. There weren't many companies who would take someone that had been out of the game that long, so I had to settle on one of the bigger companies. What a mistake that was. Before this, I had no issues as a professional truck driver with having driver-facing or inward-facing cameras. I don't do anything illegal or stupid behind the wheel, so it didn't matter. It does now. This company had stuck the camera that faced inwards and outwards along the area where the visor would cover the windshield. As most things like this happen, it was a recordable offense to have the visor not only block out the sun from laser beaming me in the face, but having the visor down block the camera. I got calls about it constantly. I asked them what I should do. Don't cover the camera. But the sun limits my vision. Don't cover the camera. I can't stick anything on the windshield to block the sun. This is unsafe. What do you want me to do? Don't block the camera. Can you move it somewhere else? No. How am I supposed to see during sunrise and sunset hours? Don't block the camera. It came down to them threatening my job and livelihood that if I blocked the camera one more time, they'd remotely deactivate the truck and force me out with a local police escort. So I started to find nice safe places to stop every single early morning and evening when I was driving where the sun would come through the windshield. My dispatcher, understanding of a man that he is, asked me why my loads were being late and why I was stopping so frequently for so many hours. So I told him, safety wouldn't compromise and I can't freaking see out the window with the sun laser beaming me in the face. I'm not crashing into someone because a darn camera is being blocked when I haven't done anything to warrant this kind of abuse. I apologized to him, but told him this would continue. He was able to schedule loads out to where I had the stopping time, but ultimately, they fired me anyway after 5 months. Bonus, I was told I was unsafe, stupid, shouldn't drive a truck, should find work that fits a woman better, and that I wouldn't be hireable anywhere, even in those sketchy second chance companies where the pay and equipment and safety is crap. Joke's on them. After 2 years of running for a company that treats me like I'm a human being and not some seat-warming robot, 4 of their little company trucks have been seen by little old me in the ditch or median on I-29 this year after a 2-day winter storm. My truck still running, currently waiting on the unload. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Fianna Bard. It says, couldn't the camera placement be reportable to DOT? Aftermarket optional cameras interfering with OEM safety equipment of the truck. I think what OP should have done in this case was find other drivers that had the exact same issue, because there really is a strength in numbers when you get a whole bunch of people putting in the same complaints or all walking into a manager's office at one time to say, hey, this needs to be changed. One person to a manager is an annoyance, but 4 or 5 plus people? Well, that's a problem. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, please give us a 5-star rating on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.